found an apartment that was furnished, and we found clothes. And 2 weeks later, I booked my first commercial, and 2 weeks after that, I booked another commercial, and then about 3 months after that, I went to Disneyland. So that was good. But my first voiceover acting job, which was actually the job that got me into the Screen Actors Guild, which was the union, was for a Hallmark cartoon based on The Emperor's New Clothes. And it was a single line, and it was, "The Emperor's not wearing any clothes." And that was it. But voiceover sort of became this thing that I did in between all of the on-camera things. And it was a great way to sort of keep sharp in that. Voiceover wasn't the goal, it just ended up being an extra thing. And now, it's honestly the main thing that I do as far as, you know, consistency of work and paying the bills. It's a great way to get those things to connect, and it's fun, it's improv, and it keeps
And you were 7 when you started.
I was 7. Beauty and the Beast was my first major voiceover role, and it was originally just one line. It was Mama, there's a girl in the castle, was all Chip said in the original script. And then they added a couple more lines. And then a couple months later, they added a couple more lines. And then a couple months later, they added a couple more lines. And then, so it was 2.5 years of, let's do a couple more lines. And it finally ended up becoming, you know, the character it is now.
Your voice so cute.
It used to be.
I'm stuck. Hello. Oh gosh, I was a nerdy theater kid that grew up on a bayou in Louisiana, so there was no voice acting when I was a kid. I didn't even know what that was. But when I moved out here, I was doing a lot of theater shows, and I fell into this really fun, creative group of friends that did a 1920s radio show that was a theater show that we recorded live in front of a live audience, and the audience would provide all the sound effects. And in that cast were some names you might recognize, like Matt Mercer, Taliesin Jaffe, Kyle Hebert would guess. So I was surrounded by these amazing voice actors, and they were the ones that suggested that I look into getting into voiceover, because I was usually the only girl in the cast, playing all of the kids and the female roles. And that's when they were all working on a video game at the time. There was a family emergency. One of the girls had to leave the studio for a family emergency, and they had a deadline. They needed the lines done that day. And Taliesin and Mercer were like, there's a girl that lives down the street that can match this voice perfectly. And they called me in, and that's how I got my start in voiceover. So basically just, I don't know, be friends with Taliesin. No, that's a horrible thing to do. No.
Please introduce me.
Yeah, I was very lucky that they both kind of vouched for me, and then that's how I kind of got my start. And then once the studios got to know me and used me for different small things, that's when they started sending me bigger auditions and calling me in for bigger things throughout the past few years. And people ask me the whole how you get started and like what's your suggestion. Like, I don't even have a voiceover agent. I book everything that I do on my own with Reputation. I don't recommend that. It's not very difficult, but I was very lucky that one gig would lead to another, and then also the creator of the Cartoon Network show that I was on was a fan of my band, and hired us to do a song for the show, and then I did a whole bunch of voices in the song, and that's when we went, oh, and started writing me into the show. So just make friends with people who create, I guess.
No, that's important. Networking is a big part of this industry.
And also, like, you know, when you do like little small stuff, it can lead to bigger things. Because some of the things that I did were just favor for friends that, you know, would pay nothing, and then later ended up being a big industry move for me. So.
But you need a t-shirt. Be friends with Taliesin.
Yeah. It's funny how I did a voiceover panel one year where it was a whole bunch of us from like Street Fighter and a bunch of other stuff, and they're like, how did you get started in voiceover? And all of us were like, Taliesin! And Talison's at the end of it going, oh, damn it.
He's a job creator.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. I'm Morgan Lofting. Did I say that? No, who knows? Okay. I started out in New York, American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Back when, darling, it was all theater. you were trained for theater. I think they knew television was out there, certainly not voiceover, but anyway, a touch of the snobbish nonsense. And several years later, I was working as a receptionist at an agency, and they said, can you do a couple lines on a radio spot? Because, and I said, sure. And so I did a couple of lines. This is fluky stuff, and it is true. It's kind of who you know. It's really a good idea if you know what you're doing, when kind of who you know gets you a gig. But it's playtime. And Wally Burr, that a lot of you have probably heard of, he's kind of an iconic cartoon director. What's the name? Wow, blanking. The name of the gal who plays Bart in The Simpsons.
Nancy Cartwright.
Thank you very much. Nancy Cartwright wrote to Wally asking him how to get started in the business. I don't know, she was somewhere in the great United States, but not in New York or Los Angeles. And he said, well, you want to do cartoons, listen to the cartoons, pay attention to the voices, pay attention to the fact that there are different kinds of cartoons. There's Disney Junior, there's the more mature stuff, and there's the really mature stuff. And then there's anime, and there's all sorts of games, which of course weren't around back when Nancy wrote the letter, but every one of these has sort of a different approach. So you want to be playing around, even if you sit there on your computer, writing down the scripts, and start playing. Start playing from there. Start improvising. If you're lucky enough that you've got people you can play with, bounce off one another. We all know folks who sit in the bar and go, hey, I can do voices. Oh, please God, don't. But what you want to do is you want to have some kind of a kit bag that you can turn to. I mean, I do not match voices at all. But I will hear somebody like Jane Lynch or Miranda Hart, who was in the Spy movie, the British actor. And I will just have a little note on my phone, an audio note on my phone, that I can sort of turn to, because a lot of it is not voice placement as much as it's pacing. I mean, you just want to play. That's the best thing I can suggest. And lighting candles to your favorite saint would probably help too.
That's what I forgot to do. Saint Allison.
I actually sacrifice small furry animals. Don't tell anyone about that.
The kid in the front row with, this is Barney! Yes!
In 1982, I woke up in a small ditch in the United States. And I knew then I had not only been touched by an extraterrestrial life, but my soul had been embraced by the darkness as well. He said he was the father of Taliesin. Really, wow, I echo everything everyone said here. It's all really familiar and everyone's story.
Well, how did you get started in this crazy?
For me, I was a theater kid also, and I left the theater in high school. And I made music for a few years instead. And I too was always yearning to come back to the theatrics of it. I wasn't finding satisfaction in music. So for me, the first big job I booked was obviously Overwatch. And Overwatch was kind of like a huge, tipping point in my career, because it introduced me to a wonderful woman by the name of Andrea Toyas, who believed in me and kind of gave me a voice internally and really backed me up. She's casting director at Blizzard, and she cast all of Overwatch. tons of other stuff. And I got to work with the wonderful Andrea Romano as well, who did a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff. And I have a funny story with my audition, because I sent an audition out, and then the same night, I re-recorded another version of it, and I added a little bit, I was newer to the industry, so I didn't know. I added a little bit of effects, and I sent it to my agent, and I said, hey, here's a second take. I think I might know what they're kind of going for with this character. And she was like, that's cute, good thinking, but I'm not gonna send it. And I was like, okay, and I was like, well, I just wanted to do it. Because I knew what it had a code name, but I play a lot of video games, and I was familiar with what was going on. So, didn't hear anything. 6 months come by, we get a call, and my agent goes, oh my God, okay, they love you, and they're gonna do this. You can make your voice go like that, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I think I sent them, I was like, I sent you two, you sent them the right one, right? No. They had sent them on accident, the other track that I manipulated. Just a little bit of reverb and a little bit of pitch change down, so he was even a little bit even.
Shame on you!
I know.
Cheater!
Right? So they called and they're like, can you really do it? And I was like, well, I just want them to be honest. And so we told them, we were up front, like, yeah, we accidentally sent you this. What's the other file? So they heard the other file, and it wasn't too far off. And they're like, okay. And I got the shot. And the one-man apocalypse was born. And it was really, I got into World of Warcraft after that. I believe that when I did League of Legends shortly after, it was because I was booking a lot of stuff, and I was a hot name at the time, and they were doing a big rework of that character. And then same thing, like you said, when I got the opportunity to play Director Tone in Agretsuko, it was through Patrick Seitz, who was my kind of Taliesin, who basically was like, hey, I think you would be, I'd worked with him on World of Warcraft, and he was like, I think you would be good for this. Can you do kind of like an Archie Bunker voice, and you just sound really, no, it's way out of my range, really time. That's, I think it was a testament to go the extra mile. Never settle for standard. Try, excel.
Put that on a t-shirt. All of it.
Oh, just one big t-shirt.
Especially the alien dish part.
1982.
How do you follow all that?
Practice.
So that's kind of how everybody got started. And what I love about that question, when I do it at panels, is everybody kind of had a different answer. And that's really important, especially for those of you who are thinking about, oh, I want to do this, I want to be a part of this. One of the things I wanted to point out is a lot of people here had acting background. Like, you started with theater, you started with acting, and I don't know about you guys, but the number one question I get asked all the time is, how do I get started in voice acting? And the first answer that always comes up at every panel and every time I talk to somebody is acting. It starts with acting. So I think it's important that we got to see that everybody has a little variety. And that leads me into my next question. What tips would you give to somebody who is wanting to start into voice acting? Somebody comes up to you at a bar and they're like, I do voices.
Well, if they come up to me at a bar, I bet, get out. Like the guy in your bar and says, I can do voices. Yeah. Please don't.
One of the top tips I always say is learn how to record and edit yourself, because if you get like a quick audition from like an agency or something and you can't go into a studio to record something quickly, the fact that you have a home studio set up or even just like a USB mic and you know basic editing can make or break an audition. It can make it sound 10 times more professional than you recording it on your phone or in some other, which also works, believe it or not. But, you know, even if you're at, like, I travel a lot for conventions, so if I get an audition from an agent, or not an agent because I don't have a voice or agent, but you know, if someone asks me to send something in, I go, great. I always pack my mic with me and I throw a blanket over my head in the hotel. Just learn how to record and edit yourself, because the fact that you can do it quickly and efficiently on your own can make all the difference. If you can get it in quick enough before everyone else, then yeah.
Some gigs require you to have a home studio now, so it's good to have a good mic at home and to do that. But as far as getting into it, a lot of people will say, yeah, I do voices, and they say, and I say, what voices do you do? Well, I do an imitation of this person, but I say, so what original voices can you do? And they get kind of quiet and go, well, you have to be able to create characters too. So that's something else. It's like take bits and pieces of a lot of different characters and put them into something that's totally new, and then you're going to really make your way. Because virtually, I mean, you're going to have match auditions sometimes where they've got somebody who, you know, is no longer under contract, or they passed away or something, and they're looking for somebody to replace them, or they just want someone to do toys, and you have to match your voice, but that is rare. That is rare. So imitations are fun, but they're better for parties than for professional stuff.
If you can do an impression of SpongeBob, that's great, but Tom Kenny already has that job,
Yes.
so you're not gonna get that one.
Yes.
My favorite story is somebody came up to me after one of these and was like, well, I do Christopher Walken. And I was like, okay, but what else do you do? No, I just do Christopher Walken. I want to be a voice actor. And I was like, no, everybody can do Christopher Walken.
I think that's probably why you were stressing the acting. I know that a lot of people think of improv as being yes and,
It's amazing.
but there's also a whole school of improv. Second City comes out of the work of Paul Still's mother, Viola Spolin, which is about thinking on stage in a scene, where have I come from, what is happening at the same time that I'm in here, where am I going, how do I feel this? In other words, there's a whole school of improv that has nothing to do with making you laugh. And this is something that will also help you in voiceover. It gives you a place to come from. It colors. It makes you think beyond, what do I sound like? It makes you think a little deeper and maybe will stretch you in what you present.
To echo what she's saying, character development in all forms of acting is critical. You have to know why a character is the way they are. In voiceover especially, it's incredibly important that you know who you are talking to. A lot of times within a character, especially for commercial copy, there is no specific audience. But anybody here who's ever been on the phone or heard somebody else on the phone, you can tell, oh, you were talking to your mom? No, I was talking to my brother. No, I was talking to my boss. You'll have a completely different reading depending on what you do. So knowing not only who you are as a character, but who you're interacting with can completely change a reading, and it's a very important part of that process. The fact that somebody can do mimicry and impressions and things like that, that's a great place to start as a character development. Well, I think that this character is going to sound a little bit like a Alan Rickman type character or whatever. And you can start with that kind of attitude. But then you have to know why in you, and that can change your read completely. So if you're looking at getting started, understand your character, understand who you're talking to, and be really good at reading. Not just what's on the page, but what's not on the page. Know what that line means.
That's one thing that I tend to stress a lot is something that's getting lost, especially in commercial work. Since the commercial actors strike,
We have
commercial actors strike, the commercial actors strike killed intern in commercials. And the one note read became everything. Everybody now does this voice for commercials. It's this, and it's, yes, exactly.
And everybody can do that voice too. So
Yeah, that does not fly when you're talking about animation or video games or any of the stuff that we're really here for. So you really need to learn interp, which is how to read the copy. What does the copy mean? What does your pitch contour do if you're leading into a subclause and you're coming out of a subclause? Learn how to, and also just cold reading as well, especially if you're going to do industrial copy, which I did a bunch of. I mean, I used to be able to read like half a page ahead and store it all, and then play it back and do the interp as I was reading it back.
Yeah.
That really helps to get you through a session and to save the client time and money. But the interp thing is also about the character and knowing how that character's pitch contours would develop based on the moment and what their intellectual capacity is and what their emotions are and where they're from and who they're, the whole thing. So being an actor first is what you have to be.
I so totally agree with you. Somebody else said, oh, they have such a great voice. Yes, but they can't read. And what we mean as actors is they can't pick up a piece of copy and cold read it. Just jump in and go for it. Not that anybody's gonna say, no, you can't look at the copy before you get on mic.
Well,
It gives you all, or what? It's just a facility. My father taught me how to do this, and I don't know what he taught me, but I, in a narration, will be reading a line, and I have already jumped with my eyes to the next line. I wish I could teach it. I could probably make money, but well, pick up a novel and just start. And you begin to get the flow of how something is written, and you begin, just allow yourself to pick up stuff and read it. And sometimes some of the greatest copy is right in a magazine, and they're pushing a car, or they're pushing soap, or they're pushing face cream, and just think about it. But as somebody very wisely said, talk to somebody. Even if you have to put a picture in front of your face on the other side of the script, talk to somebody, and it changes everything. And so, yeah.
And I want to break down that term for people who maybe are into acting and stuff like that. When we say reading, it's not like, oh, I can read words. It's not that literal. It's like you think of a table reading where they sit there and they go through the script and they see how it sounds, how they want it to sound, and think of doing that with yourself. And that's what they mean by doing a read and being able to do a read like that.
Music actually also helps too. Coming from a music background, you don't have to be a singer, obviously, but if you take like voice lessons, it helps you to control breathing, it helps you to learn how to properly use your diaphragm. Coming from a fighting video game background where half of my roles are just screaming and dying and fighting, it does help the fact that I know how to like scream properly and fight. Like I can go for hours and, my vocal cords won't be bleeding. A lot of people jump into voice acting and then damage their voice, and it's irreparable with certain roles. So yeah, just know how to use your voice correctly. Don't overwhelm it.
And that's a good note for beginners, and probably something you're pretty familiar with because you do a lot of strong voices. How do you take care of your voice?
You always want to know your limit, and you want to make sure you don't hurt yourself, and you want to be trained, and you want to be able to read copy. I'm just echoing everything I heard.
In 1982.
Yeah, but we also try to, if you're working with new producers, sometimes they'll try to get you to do the screaming and stuff at the top of the session.
Yeah,
So,
no, save it for last.
No. It's the very last thing you do.
Sometimes recording video games can be very lonely because you're not with anyone on some of these. Sometimes you are, and sometimes you're not. When you're doing like Walla, you're with people, and Walla's like background murmurs and voices and stuff like that. But even in some of the animations I've done alone, and I've been the unlucky one that has gone in first a lot of the times and set my tracks first, and then the heroine and the hero come in the next 2 days and have all the villains' lines ready to go. But I think one of the biggest things you need to do is find, like Bob was saying, you gotta find your voice. Because there's only one you in the universe, okay? And there's no one like you, ever. No one gonna be like you, okay? So that is
that on a
your,
t-shirt.
that is your superpower.
We're gonna make a dress.
I love how we started this panel with, this is the dark side, this is the
Now
light
I'm
side.
like, spit.
You're like a fortune
Barney said we're going to sacrifice animals. It's like, there's no only one you.
You're special.
Roadhog is like, you're a special snowflake.
But in commercial work, that's called your signature sound.
Yeah.
That's the thing that sells you, is you want to find something that, some people are born with a signature sound and have a certain texture or something unique about their voice that really helps make them stand out. And that a lot of times somebody has to kind of develop a signature sound that's not really what their conversational sound is like. But figure something out, and that will really help. It may if you're working through an agent, they may say, well, we need to adjust this or that or something, but it's really helpful.
And get used to hearing no, unfortunately.
Yes.
Because it's part of the job. Hearing of acting is hearing the words no, but that doesn't mean you have to believe it or be okay with it, you know what I mean? That's how you struggle to get better, so,
And 99% of the time when you get a no, it has nothing to do with you.
Yes,
Absolutely
absolutely.
not.
An example that my grandmother actually used a lot when we would talk to other people about this was, it's like either a black suit for a guy or a black dress for a woman. You can go to the store, there's 50 of them on the rack, and they are all exactly what you asked for. A black suit or a black dress. But why that black suit or that black dress instead of the other? Well, this one's got a brand name I like, and this one's in a price range I can afford, and so now I'm down to 6 black suits that I like. It's the same with acting. I'm looking for a brown-haired guy in his mid-30s, about 5'6", a little heavier than he should be. He should have receding hairline. I could probably find 17 people in this building that would fit that. Now, 9 out of 10 times, it's not my fault, and I know that. So the rejection there is the thing. It's not rejection, it's just not you this time. To go back to something Bob said, and this is from an actor I worked with named Jim Cummings, who everybody here, I'm sure, is familiar with. I worked with him on a project I was on. It was Tales, actually. He was Dr. Robotnik. He said, because I asked him, I said, what's the trick? How do I get to be like you? He said, you have to find your individuality. Find what it is that makes you you. Because in all of Jim Cummings' voices, and he's got millions of them, they all are Jim Cummings. If you listen carefully enough, they're all him. And he said, if you can find that thing, that individuality, that piece of it that's you, that is what will make you successful. And so that's, a critical piece of what everybody here is saying.
And if you can make people laugh
We're
at
also,
this session.
on a downer note, at the mercy of the equipment and the engineer. Most sound equipment, even though today it's much more up to date, was set for the deeper male voice.
Oh, yeah.
It was created for the male voice, so the women sound a little screechy. Okay, there you go. It's fun to be at a party with a whole bunch of guys, and let's see who can do the deepest voice. Okay. The other thing is that there used to be engineers, and I certainly had this said to me, well, a woman's voice doesn't cut. Well, sweetie, maybe you'll learn how to run the board. But of course you can't say things like this. But you are. So I guess really, and I certainly didn't know this when I started out, you need a little more expertise other than just your instrument. You need to know, perhaps, and there are some actors who do this, who bring their own mic to a session because it will make a difference.
And headphones.
I don't know that you need to get quite that crazy, but I'm just throwing that out there.
I always brought my own headphones because they were flat and they would just, I knew there were certain mics that I would like, but headphones that
That's
are really
that's actually
honest.
a personal thing I have too, is I can't stand to have the headphones in the booth. I have a little bit of, I feel like tinnitus because my day job is I work at Universal Studios. Peter Cullen is here, so I can't be like, I'm Optimus Prime, but I am the stunt double theme park Optimus Prime. So,
You might recognize you.
I used to work there too.
yeah, and doing that I hear a lot of sharp noises, but I swear those headphones makes a difference because I've done auditions before and gone in the booth and like, my God, that was terrible. I couldn't replicate anything because I didn't want to say anything like, are your headphones blown? You know what I mean? We're in this $1 million studio and these headphones are $120. You know, this is terrible, you know?
Yeah, the big fat AKGs, really muddy, can't tell what I'm saying. You know, it's just, I always bring a pair of Sonys there.
The Sony's 134.
I have to put one off my ear so I can never
Yes.
put both on my ear. I'm like, I have to take one off just so I can hear
I
myself
see people
what
on the
they're
radio
hearing.
with it. I don't know. I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you do that? How do you do that?
I
A
have
lot
to
of
do
people-
one ear.
You're in a goldfish bowl, right? I can't, I mean, I'm in a goldfish bowl after that music downstairs. I can barely hear
I
myself.
apologize in advance for my 4 o'clock concert.
So that's a good point, and Bonnie touched on this earlier, is kind of understand how the equipment works and how, you know, you could use it in your own personal studio is a great way to start building and practicing. That way, when you're talking to somebody who's running a board, you can be like, oh, could you do this? Because this is what I do in my home studio. And they'll be like, oh yeah, let's try it out most of the time. But yeah, so it's good to know the equipment and other parts of the industry, so it's really
And
important.
this is something that a class is really good for, is having someone where you go to a voiceover class and there's someone there who's been engineering and producing people for a long time. And if you're not familiar with how to address a microphone, it's really important. Where you know, how close you get to the mic, where exactly, whether you're on axis or off axis. I actually
Peas.
I have a certain way that I do it.
Peas.
I'll actually come across engineers who go, dude, you're off axis, and I'll go, no, I'm not, check this out. And I have a little trick that I do, and they go, oh my God, that works. But so, just getting experience in front of microphones and not popping your mic all the time, you know. And the distance from the microphone makes a difference. I never wear a hat with a bill on it when I'm working because it will actually change the acoustics. If I have a hat on, I'll turn it around backwards. There's a lot of technical stuff, but it's fairly easy to learn if you just give yourself some time, which, and again, helps to have a home studio, but I can't tell you how much it really helps to take classes from people who get recommendations before you do it, though, because there's a lot of garbage.
So you actually read my mind. That was my next segue, was classes. I know, Josh, you taught classes.
I had an opportunity, and I know many other voice actors do some online classes. Some of the studios, the mecca for this stuff is Burbank. It really is, in the Studio City surrounding areas. And you can find any class you want in your price range if you want to spend something that's ludicrous and have a very wonderful coach there. Absolutely, you know, those options are available. If there's something more affordable for the newcomer too. You know, sometimes the further you get in the industry, you want to take those ludicrous classes because I want that one-on-one training. There was a class of Stephen Tobolowsky a couple months ago, like Camilton and Camilton, that I saw, and I was like, oh, that would be great because while it's pricey, you're getting some pretty priceless interactions
Yeah,
with,
that's the improv.
you know, the improv right there. So there is a range for you, and if you can't do it and you don't live in that area, there are classes you can take online. I know Steve Bloom offers a workshop.
Yeah, I've done
Kristen
Steve's.
Freeman.
Kristen Freeman is another fellow alumni of Overwatch. She was a great place to start. There's literally a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com that will take you through these steps. So yeah, if you want to take the plunge, just do your homework, you know what I mean? And don't be scared. It's going to be okay.
And I would suggest too, also to talk to other actors or other people who want to be actors. Because there's a lot of nonsense out there that will take your money and be of no value to you at all.
Oh yeah, always read the reviews on those because I had one that was like, it was like $800, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money, and the reviews were not good, and I was like,
Well, it could also be things like I just said, like those expensive classes. You don't want to be a beginner paying, thinking, oh, I want to pay all this money to go to this class. You go in there and you're severely underprepared, and God forbid, undermatched, and then you have a bad experience with it, you know.
So would we say regular acting classes, then voice acting classes?
Yes.
If possible, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it depends on who you want to play with. If you hear somebody that's good, everybody doesn't want to get up and present themselves,
True.
body and soul. You
Yes.
know. Yeah. Some people just want to do voices.
And here's the fun thing. A lot of actors who go into voice acting are not good voice actors. They can be incredibly amazing screen actors, and the minute that they can't convey emotion with their face and their body, and it's just their voice. I mean, I can go through hundreds of examples where they'll.
Vin Diesel.
Fight me outside. What's voice acting arts?
There's circumstances where they'll hire a big name actor for like a video game or some kind of animation, and then later have to recast it because the acting is just not there, even though they could be one of the most incredible stage and on-screen actors that you've seen.
Peter Dinklage.
I won't say it.
Yeah, that's exactly. I didn't want to say the name, but thank you. Peter Dinklage is a great example. He's
Don't tell him we talked.
incredible actor. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter. No, he just like comes out and like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was a special guest.
I disagree with you. I think stage actors can make the jump.
Oh,
If you're
yes.
screen actors,
I also agree.
It's got a
Yes.
totally different training.
well, yeah. Well, and I agree too. But again, just make sure that when you are acting, that you are conveying it with your voice, because you lose the opportunity to show what you're conveying with your face and your body and your eyes.
Oh, there's a certain amount you can do with the hands.
Oh yeah.
You just, oh my God, don't have anything right or no people right next to it.
I broke a lamp in Street Fighter. I was like, because I was trying to get that intensity of the fight, and I was like, and I went a little too wild, broke a lamp. The next session, a week later, everything was cleared out of the room. They're like, oh, Bonnie's coming. Like, they had everything out in the hall. And they're like, just precaution. I'm like, okay. And I was like, you're not going to take this out of my... It was a cheap lamp, thank goodness. But
All right,
yeah, definitely broke the lamp.
We are coming to our last 10 minutes. If anybody would like to ask a question, please come to the front. Oh, you're already at the front. Stand up.
Where did the spaceship take you?
So yeah, just line up with your questions. We'll try to get through everybody that we can.
Where did the spacecraft first appear?
I just wondering, have you ever done a voice and then not been able to recreate it?
Yeah, this is an open.
I will say yes. I started as a child, so once I hit puberty, a lot of those voices were no longer in range, and I tried hard. But as an adult, there have been voices where I have done something when I was doing the original read and delivery, and then when they played back from it, I don't remember how I got there. It was either too nasally and I can't get back to it or whatever. Because sometimes you can push it a certain way and not be able to recreate it, but hopefully get close enough, and that's where some of that extra training can come in.
Great question. Next. There you go.
Hi. How would you recommend going about getting an agent? And if you don't have an agent, how do you
Don't ask me.
how do you shop for your auditions?
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff online, which I would just be aware that if you're not union, a lot of times they'll say, oh, we love it, you did an audition, and maybe union is paying $8.50, and they say, well, we can get somebody for $35, how do you feel about 30? So you gotta be careful where you're going to create your tape. Good, reputable voice studios will create a tape for you, and you're going to have to, I'm assuming, have that to go to get an agent. If you're not union, there's a lot more agencies you can approach.
But getting an agent in, like in Los Angeles, is basically, it really is kind of a who you know thing. There are agencies who will not listen if you send them a CD or whatever, or they will not listen to it. It just goes straight in the trash.
I have over 40 video credits and I can't get an agent.
Yeah,
They don't write
and
me back. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, and so cold calling is almost impossible in LA. So what you have to do is, you have to schmooze people. You have to get to know people who are voice actors and say, and they'll take your CD or whatever in, or your link to your website or your demo. and they'll take it in and talk to the agent and say, but it has to be a personal recommendation. They have to believe in you. And so the agent will then say, okay, we'll listen. But it's just getting that first listen that can be hard.
That's it, I agree. The first listen is the hardest. For me personally, I took classes with a certain agency called Solid Talent a couple years ago with Michaela Stepanovich and Mike Solid. And they had the Oprah Winfrey, that was like their big gig at the studio houses that they owned, the Oprah Winfrey voiceover, so that was a lucrative deal. Long story short, a friend of mine said, hey, there's a meet and greet, it's $100, but you have the chance to go meet with these two voiceover agents. And you know, and I have to honestly say, for 9 or 8 out of the 10 people who went that night, they didn't get their $100 worth because they didn't get cash. But for me, one other guy who did. Okay. And that proved to my agent, you're serious. I've seen you for a year at my classes. You showed up here to meet me with $100. What have you been doing? And that's when I told her, hey, I actually did some work on the side. I have a new demo. That's, you know, that's kind of where that comes in. And she was like, I'm willing to represent you. And then remember, a real agent will never charge you any money to sign you. They'll never ask for any money. They will ask for some information like a W-9, some tax information from you once you book a job. And they'll never charge you to receive auditions.
Although the classes thing is correct, it is a bit scammy. I don't know what it is outside. It was never this way in Dallas or in Texas in general. You couldn't teach a class and be an agent. You couldn't take people's money or be a casting person and take people's money. So, but somehow they get away with it here in LA, and you just kind of have to grit your teeth and bear it.
Don't you think it's a total industry that has nothing to do with us actually getting work?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think you need to start small. I had a very nice voiceover career in the 80s and the early 90s. Then I went away and went to university, which is the smartest thing I ever did for myself. Then I came back. I couldn't get arrested. I got an agent quite by a fluke. I hopped out from behind Jack Angel at the show in March, the Transformers show out at the airport, and said to Arlene, who's married to, hi Arlene, I'm looking for an agent. Can I talk to you? That was it. Yeah. That's how I got an agent.
So networking is very important. Or do what I did and host a bunch of panels for years.
And like Bonnie said, sometimes you don't need an agent. So remember that too.
Oh, good luck with that. Jesus. All right, you're next.
I was wondering, was there like a role that a character you wanted to do, but you never got the chance, or
all of them. All of them.
But like a specific character.
Like a dream role.
Dream role. For me, I would just love to be on a show that's like Animaniacs is a perfect example, because they do everything from music, they do impressions, you're able to play a character that imitates other different characters to where it would be a perfect role for me to showcase everything that I do. I do everything from little kids to old ladies, and I would love to do all the impressions and stuff in between, just on one show. That'd be great. That's my dream show.
For me, it was Space Jam.
Oh.
There was a national call for the characters, Warner Brothers characters, and I did Bugs Bunny, everything that a Tasmanian Devil, and I nailed the old school version, the really old school version. And I didn't realize that they were just morphing all the characters at the time, so we missed out on that one completely. It was one of those where you get frustrated because you don't have a producer standing in front of you to ask how they want it. So you get you'll do a great audition, but unfortunately they were looking for something else. So again, that's one of those it's not you things.
Okay.
I've always wanted to get more into video games as a voice.
Networking.
It was actually a character in one of the Halo sequels that I auditioned for. And they actually brought me in. It was one where I was a self-tape and I sent it in, and then they brought me into the studio to record, and I got close on it. And that actually almost hurt worse than never hearing anything, because it ended up not happening, but they that would have been a fun one.
All right.
I got Transformers. I've auditioned for the cartoon dozens of times, dozens of roles, and it's just like Bob said. It's like you wish the producer was in the room. Like, do you want this version of Starscream? Do you want this version of Starscream? Do you want Ratchet sounding like this, Optimus? Or do you want old Ratchet sounding like this, Optimus? Like, like, what do you want? And you just gotta guess sometimes. So I would love to be in the Transformers.
There you go. And next.
What's your suggestion on trying to deal with comparing job offers of, oh my god, this is completely useless, or I'm going to make so much money and become extremely famous by doing this one simple gig?
I would say
Jump for the money.
don't overthink it. Don't even think either one of those things. You just do your audition. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. When you go in, it's like, this is a really good life skill for actors. You learn how to walk out the door of an audition and put it out of your mind. Just totally put it out of your mind. And you try to not think about it beforehand too, so that you don't get nervous about it. Because if it doesn't happen, then okay. If it does, great, that's gravy.
It's really interesting that your question came right after, is there a role you ever really wanted to play? Because at a certain point, every role is a role you want to play. Otherwise, you wouldn't be auditioning for it in the first place. So you have to be able to make it that important that right now, this role, whether it's the one that's going to make you famous, whether it's the one in the Disney movie that everybody's going to remember 25 years from now, or whether it's going to be the background voice that no one ever knows was you. Either way, in that moment, give it your best shot, and once you know you've done your best at it, walk away.
Because that might lead to another job too.
I think it's possible that, I've certainly done this, what you say on the, what is it, the French say, l'esprit d'escalier, you gotta leave, and on the stairs you go, oh shit, I could have, But I think you can also learn from stuff, and you do. You just, well now, wait a minute, what if I had, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're beating yourself up, it just means, oh, there's a new way to attack something like that for next time.
And also, most of the jobs you audition for, you don't know what the project is anyway. So it could be under a code name. A lot of video games do that, to where you're auditioning for something and you're like, oh, this doesn't look very good, but whatever, I'll send it an audition anyway. And then 6 months later, you get a call and you're like, you just booked Street Fighter. And I'm like, what? I didn't audition for Street Fighter. They're like, yeah, you did. Project Thunder. I'm like, Project Thunder? All right, that sounded like a horrible game. I'm in. Yeah, so it's stuff like that. You never know what the project could lead to. You never know what movies do this too, where they have code names for something, and then later on you find out that you're auditioning for the new live action Star Wars. That type of thing. It's you never know what it could lead to.
So unfortunately, I've been told that we're out of time. But for those of you who didn't get to your questions, please come to their booths downstairs, ask them in person, get to know them, network. Come say hi. And Bonnie's going to be on the stage at 4 o'clock.
Thanks, guys. Gal.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Project Thunder!
Project Thunder.
Oh, did you?
It was literally Project Thunder.
Oh my god.
Nothing better to do.